The morning sun shone bright over New Haven Colony as 10-year-old Danny Morrison kicked his soccer ball across the green grass of the Central Park. His little sister Katie ran behind him, her pigtails bouncing as she tried to catch up. The air smelled fresh and clean. Nothing like the stories their parents told about old Earth before the great cleanup. Danny stopped and waited for Katie to reach him. She was only 6 years old, and her legs were much shorter than his. He smiled as she finally caught up, breathing hard but grinning wide. "You run too fast, Danny," Katie said, pushing her blonde hair out of her eyes. "Sorry, Katie, I'll go slower next time," Danny promised. He always looked out for his little sister. Their mom and dad had taught him that big brothers should protect. Their family not far away, in the colony's main building, Jake Morrison sat at a long table facing 3 alien visitors. The meeting room felt tense and quiet. Jake was the colony administrator, which meant he had to take care of all the people who lived on New Haven. It was a big job, but he loved his community. His wife Lisa sat next to him. She was the colony's doctor and one of the smartest people Jake had ever met. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore her serious face. That usually meant trouble. Across from them sat the 3 members of the Galactic Empire delegation. The leader called himself High Commander Vexstar. He was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. His 2 assistants looked similar but smaller. They all wore dark uniforms with strange symbols that Jake didn't recognize. "The new tax rate will be 40% of all colony production," Vexstar said in a cold voice. His words came out sharp and clear through the translation device on the table. "This is not a discussion. This is an order from the Galactic Empire." Jake felt his jaw tighten. 40% was way too much. The colony barely made enough to feed everyone and keep the power running. If they had to give away almost half of everything they produced, people would starve. "Sir, with respect, our current treaty with the Empire sets the tax at 15%. Jake said carefully. He had read that treaty many times. "We've been following it exactly for the past 5 years. Vexstar's black eyes seemed to grow even darker. "Treaties can change, human. The Empire decides what is fair, not you." Lisa leaned forward slightly. "Commander, our colony has always been loyal to the Empire. We pay our taxes on time. We follow all the rules." "But 40% would mean our people don't have enough food. Surely the Empire doesn't want loyal citizens to suffer." "What the Empire wants is obedience," Vexstar replied. His voice grew louder. "Humans think too much. You ask too many questions. You need to learn your place in the galaxy." Outside in the park, Danny heard the raised voices coming from the main building. He stopped playing and looked toward the windows. His parents were in there talking to the alien visitors. Danny had seen aliens before, but these ones seemed different. "Meaner. What's wrong, Danny?" Katie asked, noticing her brother's worried face. "I think Mom and Dad might be in trouble," Danny said quietly. He took Katie's hand. "Come on, let's go see if they're okay." Back in the meeting room, Jake stood up slowly. His face was red with anger, but he kept his voice calm. "Commander, I understand the Empire's authority, but I have to think about my people. Can we discuss a compromise? Maybe 25%? Vexstar slammed his hand on the table, making Lisa jump. "There is no compromise. You will pay 40% or face the consequences." "What consequences?" Lisa asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "The Empire has many ways to deal with disobedient colonies," Vexstar said with a cruel smile. "Sometimes examples must be made." The main building doors opened and Danny walked in, still holding Katie's hand. He had never seen his parents look so scared and angry at the same time. The 3 aliens turned to look at the children, and Danny felt a cold chill run down his back. "Danny, take Katie outside," Jake said quickly. "Go play in the park." But Danny didn't move. He could tell something was very wrong. His father's voice shook when he talked, and his mother looked like she might cry. The tall alien in the middle stared at Danny with those big black eyes. "These are your offspring," Vexstar said, not asking but stating a fact. "Yes, these are our children," Lisa said, standing up and moving toward them. "Danny, Katie, please go outside now." Vexstar studied the two human children for a long moment. Danny felt like the alien was looking right through him. It made him feel small and afraid, but he didn't want to leave his parents alone with these scary visitors. Humans love their young very much, Vexstar said slowly. It is a weakness we have observed across your species. Loving our children isn't a weakness, Jake said firmly. It's what makes us human. It makes you predictable, Vexstar replied. And predictable species are easy to control. The alien commander reached into his uniform and pulled out a strange-looking weapon. It was black and silver with a blue glow at one end. Lisa gasped and grabbed Jake's arm. Commander, there's no need for weapons, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. We can work this out. I think there is a need, Vexstar said, pointing the weapon toward the family. The Empire requires absolute obedience. When humans see the cost of defiance, they learn quickly. Danny didn't understand all the big words, but he knew the alien was threatening his family. Without thinking, he let go of Katie's hand and ran toward his parents. Leave my mom and dad alone, Danny shouted, his small voice echoing in the big room. Vexstar turned the weapon toward the running boy. Time seemed to slow down as Lisa screamed and Jake lunged forward, trying to reach his son. The alien's finger pressed the trigger. Bright blue beam shot out from the weapon and hit Danny in the chest. The boy stopped running and looked down at the smoking hole in his shirt with confusion. He looked up at his parents one more time, said Mom, in a weak voice, and then fell to the floor. Katie screamed and ran to her brother. Lisa collapsed beside her children, pulling Danny's lifeless body into her arms. Jake stood frozen, staring at his son with his mouth open in shock. Now you understand the price of questioning the Empire, Vexstar said calmly, putting his weapon away. 40% tax payable immediately. Any further discussion will result in more examples. The two assistant aliens followed their commander out of the building, leaving the Morrison family alone with their grief. Lisa held her son's body and cried while Katie sobbed beside them. Jake finally moved, kneeling down to hold his family. Together, the other colonists had heard the screams and came running. They found the Morrison family on the floor and quickly understood what had happened. Within minutes, the entire colony knew that the Empire had murdered a human child in cold blood. Word spread quickly through the quantum communication networks. Every human colony, every Earth government official, every person who called themselves human learned that a 10-year-old boy named Danny Morrison had been executed by the Galactic Empire for the crime of loving his parents, on Earth in the capital city. President Helen Cross received the news while eating breakfast. She set down her coffee cup with shaking hands and immediately called for an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. Admiral Ryan Blake was in his office at Fleet Command when the message came through. He read it twice, then walked to his window and looked out at the peaceful morning sky. In a few hours, that peace would be gone forever. The Galactic Empire had made the worst mistake in their long history. They had killed a human child and thought it would make humanity weak and afraid. They were about to learn how wrong they were. President Helen Cross sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the Earth government building. Around the long table sat the most powerful people in human space. Their faces were grim and angry. The holographic display showed a picture of Danny Morrison smiling at his birthday party just 3 months ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Helen said, her voice cold as ice, they killed our child. They murdered a 10-year-old boy to make a point about taxes. She stood up slowly, her hands pressed flat on the table. The Galactic Empire thinks we are weak. They think we will bow down and accept this. They are wrong. Defense Minister Carl Brooks leaned forward. Madam President, our current fleet strength is limited. The Empire has thousands of ships across dozens of star systems. If we fight them openly, we might lose. Helen turned to look at Admiral Ryan Blake, who had been quiet since arriving from Fleet Command. Admiral, please tell Minister Brooks about Project Titan. Ryan Blake stood up and walked to the holographic controls. With a few button presses, the image of Danny Morrison disappeared and was replaced by something that made everyone in the room gasp. Massive space stations floated in the darkness between planets. Shipyards stretched for miles in every direction. Hundreds of warships sat in neat rows, their hulls gleaming with armor and weapons. The ships were bigger and more advanced than anything the Empire had ever seen. "For the past 15 years, Admiral Blake said, we have been building in secret. Every asteroid mining operation, every deep space research station, every routine cargo mission has been part of Project Titan. We told the Empire we were peaceful traders and explorers. We lied. The room was completely silent. Even the president looked surprised at the size of the hidden fleet. How many ships? Asked General Patricia Stone from Army Command. 1,200 warships of various classes, Blake replied. Plus support vessels, transports, and mobile bases. We also have weapons and technology the Empire has never seen. While they thought we were buying their old equipment for peaceful purposes, our scientists were taking it apart and making it better. Dr. Nathan Price, the government's chief science advisor, spoke up from his seat. We learned from every piece of alien technology we could get our hands on. But we didn't just copy it, we improved it. Human engineering has always been about making things work better, faster, and stronger. Helen looked around the table at each person. The Empire made one critical mistake. They never bothered to really study human history. If they had, they would have learned that we have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to fight. We know how to win. And we know how to make our enemies regret starting a fight with us. She pressed a button on her communicator. This is President Cross. Authorization code Alpha 779. Activate Project Titan immediately. Full military mobilization. No limits. Across the solar system, hidden bases came to life. On the dark side of Luna, massive doors opened. In what looked like simple mining facilities, warships began emerging from underground hangars. Near Jupiter, asteroid mining stations revealed their true purpose as weapons manufacturing centers. Captain Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, the largest battleship humanity had ever built. He watched as his crew prepared for combat. These men and women had trained for this day for years, but they never thought it would come because someone murdered a child. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we're getting final orders." From Fleet Command. Alex read the message on his command screen. The orders were simple and direct. Destroy every Empire military installation in 3 star systems simultaneously. Show no mercy, take no prisoners. All hands, this is the captain. Alex announced over the ship's communication system. In 6 hours, we will be engaging Empire forces in the Kepler system. They killed one of our children. Today we show them what happens when you threaten human families. Lieutenant Commander Beth Williams climbed into her fighter cockpit aboard the carrier ship UES Thunder. Around her, 49 other pilots were doing the same. Strike Squadron 7 was the best fighter unit in the human fleet. They had practiced every possible combat scenario dozens of times. "Listen up, people," Beth said over the squadron communication channel. "Today is not a training exercise. Today we fight for Danny Morrison and every human child in the galaxy. The Empire thinks we're soft because we care about our families. Let's show them that caring makes us stronger, not weaker." The fighters launched from the carrier bay in perfect formation. Beth felt the familiar push of acceleration as her ship reached combat speed. She looked at the picture of her own daughter taped to her control panel. No alien would ever threaten a human child again if she had anything to say about it on Earth. In a secret laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Nathan Price worked frantically on a special project. For years, he had studied alien biology and genetics. He knew the weaknesses of every Empire species. Now he was designing weapons that would exploit those weaknesses. "The Zephyrian respiratory system is very different from ours," he explained to his research team. "They can't handle certain airborne compounds that are harmless to humans. If we deploy this in their atmosphere, it will be devastating to them, but won't hurt any human colonists." His assistant, Dr. Rebecca Torres, looked worried. "Nathan, this is biological warfare. Are we sure we want to cross that line?" Dr. Price stopped working and looked at her with sad eyes. Rebecca, they crossed the line when they killed a child. We're just responding in kind. The Empire has used biological weapons against other species for centuries. Now they get to see how it feels. Meanwhile, intelligence operative Claire Davis sat in a small room filled with computer equipment. She was one of the best hackers in human space, and her job was to break into Empire communication networks. For months, she had been slowly inserting herself into their systems, pretending to be routine maintenance programs. Got it, she said to herself as Empire military codes flashed across her screen. She now had access to their fleet movements, supply lines, and command structure. Even better, she could send false orders that would look completely legitimate to Empire forces. Claire began typing rapidly, sending fake messages that would redirect Empire supply ships away from military bases. She also planted false intelligence reports that would make Empire commanders suspicious of each other. Admiral Blake stood in Fleet Command watching dozens of screens that showed human forces moving into position. The Empire had no idea what was coming. Their intelligence reports still showed humanity as having only a few dozen outdated ships. Admiral, said his aide, all task forces report ready. We have ships in position around Kepler, Vega, and Centauri systems. The Empire has major bases in all three locations. How long until they detect our approach? Blake asked. At current stealth levels, they won't see us until we're right on top of them, maybe 30 minutes before we attack. Blake nodded grimly. Signal all ships. In exactly 4 hours, we hit them with everything we have. I want those Empire bases turned into space dust before they know what hit them. Back on New Haven Colony, Jake Morrison held his wife as she cried over their son's grave. The other colonists had built a small memorial in the park where Danny used to play. Fresh flowers covered the simple stone marker. He was just a little boy, Lisa whispered. He just wanted to protect us. Jake's jaw was tight with anger. He did protect us, Lisa. His death is going to protect every human child in the galaxy. The Empire made a mistake when they killed our son. They woke up something they should have left sleeping. Lisa looked up at him with tears in her eyes. What do you mean? I got a message from Earth Command an hour ago, Jake said quietly. The war has already started. Our fleets are moving into position right now. By tomorrow morning, the Empire is going to learn that humans don't forgive and we don't forget. High above them, invisible to the naked eye, the first human warships were already jumping into hyperspace. The Galactic Empire was about to face the full fury of an awakened human race. They had killed one child thinking it would make humanity submit. Instead, they had just signed their own death warrant. The Empire base at Kepler Station had never seen anything like it. Commander Zekthar was drinking his morning stimulant when the alarm started screaming. Through the viewport of his command center, he watched human warships materialize out of nowhere, their weapons already charging for attack. Impossible, he whispered. The humans only have trading ships. The first human missiles hit the station's shields before he could even give orders to his crew. But these weren't normal missiles. They punched through Empire defenses like they were made of paper. Explosions rocked the massive station as human fighters swarmed around it like angry insects. Lieutenant Commander Beth Williams led her squadron in the attack run. Her fighters' weapons locked onto the Empire gun turrets and fired without hesitation. Each shot was perfect, destroying the alien weapons before they could fire back. Target the command center, she ordered her pilots. No survivors. The use. Vengeance moved through space like a predator hunting prey. Captain Alex Carter watched the Empire ships trying to form a defensive line and smiled coldly. They were following their standard battle tactics, the same ones they had used for hundreds of years. Human intelligence had studied those tactics and found every weakness. Fire all forward batteries, Alex commanded, the Vengeance's main guns. Unleashed a stream of energy that tore through 3 Empire destroyers in seconds. The alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their crews never knowing what hit them. Captain, we're getting surrender signals from 2 Empire cruisers, reported his communications officer. Ignore them, Alex replied without emotion. Danny Morrison didn't get a chance to surrender. The human fleet moved through the Kepler system like a force of nature. Every Empire ship, every space station, every military installation was destroyed completely. The humans didn't just win the battle, they erased every trace of Empire presence from the system at the same time. Similar attacks were happening in the Vega and Centauri systems. General Marcus Stone led ground forces that dropped onto Empire-controlled planets with orders that shocked even his own soldiers. "Sir, the Empire garrison is trying to surrender," reported Colonel Dave Turner as human troops surrounded the alien military base. "No prisoners," General Stone said firmly. "They want to surrender now, but they didn't hesitate to kill our children." "Burn it all down." The human soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. They had trained for combat, but this was different. This was revenge. "General," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, "some of these aliens might be innocent civilians." Marcus Stone turned to face his troops. His face was hard as stone and his eyes burned with anger. "Listen to me, all of you. 3 days ago, the Empire murdered a 10-year-old boy named Danny Morrison. They killed him to send us a message about obedience. Today we send them a message about consequences." He pointed toward the Empire base where alien soldiers were waving white flags. "Those creatures in there serve the same Empire that executed our child. They wear the same uniforms. They follow the same orders. They made their choice when they put on those uniforms. Now they live with the results." The human troops looked at the picture of Danny Morrison that every soldier carried. The smiling face of the murdered boy reminded them why they were fighting. Their hesitation disappeared. "Burn it down," Colonel Turner ordered his men. On Earth, President Helen Cross received reports from all 3 battle zones. The Empire forces had been completely destroyed in less than 6 hours. Not a single human ship had been lost. The hidden Project Titan fleet was performing even better than expected. "Madam President," said her aide, "we're getting communication. Requests from Empire High Command. They want to negotiate." "After 6 hours of fighting?" Helen laughed bitterly. "Now they want to talk? Tell them to contact Danny Morrison if they want to negotiate." "Oh wait, they can't. They killed him." She turned to Admiral Blake, who was coordinating the military operations from Earth Command. "Admiral, I want you to expand the offensive. Every Empire military base, every government facility, every symbol of their authority gets destroyed. Show them what total war looks like." Commander Sam Rivers received his new orders while his stealth ship was hiding near an Empire supply depot. His mission was simple: destroy everything that kept the Empire war machine running. No more limits, no more rules of engagement. Target. "Analysis complete, sir," reported his tactical officer. "The depot supplies 12 Empire battle groups with food, fuel, and ammunition." "How many civilians work there?" Sam asked. "Intelligence reports about 3,000 non-military personnel." Sam was quiet for a moment, thinking about Danny Morrison's face. The boy who would never grow up because the Empire wanted to make a point about power. "Launch all missiles," he ordered. "Full spread." The Empire supply depot vanished in a series of explosions that could be seen from orbit. 3,000 Empire civilians died in less than 2 minutes. Sam felt no guilt. The Empire had started this type of war when they targeted children. Dr. Nathan Price stood in his laboratory watching the test results from his biological weapons. The airborne compound had been deployed on 3 Empire worlds, and the results were exactly what he had predicted. The alien respiratory systems couldn't handle the human-designed toxin. "How effective was it?" asked Dr. Rebecca Torres, who still looked uncomfortable with their work. 97% mortality rate among Zephyrian populations, Nathan reported. "Zero effect on human colonists or other species with similar biology to ours. It's the perfect weapon." Rebecca sat down heavily in her chair. "Nathan, we just killed millions of aliens." "And they killed one of our children thinking it would make us afraid," Nathan replied. "Every dead Empire citizen is payment for Danny Morrison's life. The only question is whether we've collected enough interest yet." Meanwhile, intelligence operative Claire Davis was having the time of her life. She had complete access to Empire communication networks and was using it to create chaos. False orders sent Empire fleets to empty star systems. Fake intelligence reports made Empire commanders attack each other. "This is amazing," she said to her computer screens. "I just convinced the Empire 3rd Fleet that the Empire 7th Fleet are traitors. They're going to destroy each other and we don't have to fire a shot." Her supervisor, Agent Kevin Ross, looked worried. "Claire, won't the Empire eventually figure out their communications are compromised?" "Eventually, sure," Claire smiled. "But by then, half their military will have destroyed the other half. The Empire always prided itself on order and discipline. Let's see how they handle complete chaos." High Commander Vexstar, the alien who had killed Danny Morrison, sat in his flagship trying to understand what was happening. 3 major star systems had gone silent. His supply lines were being destroyed. His own fleets were fighting each other based on contradictory orders. "Sir, we're receiving reports of human military capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates," reported his aide, a nervous young Zephyrian named Kixara. "That's impossible," Vexstar snapped. "Humans are weak traders. They don't have real warships." "Sir, the Kepler base was defended by 200 ships and 15,000 troops. The humans destroyed everything in 6 hours without losing a single vessel." Vexstar felt cold fear creeping into his mind. "Send a message to Empire High Command. Tell them we need to negotiate with the humans immediately." "Sir, we tried that. The human president refuses all communication. She says the time for talking ended when we killed their child." For the first time since he had executed the human boy, Vexstar began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. He had thought killing one child would terrify the humans into submission. Instead, he had awakened something that the Empire was not prepared to face. "Order all remaining fleets to defensive positions," he commanded, "and send word to the outer colonies. Tell them to prepare for siege warfare." But it was already too late. Human forces were moving faster than Empire communications. By the time Vexstar's warnings reached the outer systems, human ships were already there, turning Empire installations into space debris. The war was less than a week old, and the Galactic Empire was already losing badly. They had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years through fear and superior technology. Now they faced an enemy that was not afraid and had better weapons than anything they possessed. Danny Morrison's death had unleashed the full fury of humanity, and the Empire was learning that some mistakes can never be undone. The Empire capital world of Zephyros had never known fear. For 1,000 years it had been the center of galactic power, where alien species came to bow before the Empire throne. Now, as human warships filled the sky above the great cities, that power was crumbling like old stone. Emperor Valdris stood on his palace balcony watching the human fleet in orbit. Hundreds of ships hung in the darkness above his world, like predators waiting to strike. His hands shook as he gripped the stone railing. "Your Majesty," said his military advisor, General Decaron, "our remaining fleets are scattered across the galaxy. We cannot defend the capital. How is this possible?" The Emperor whispered. "The humans were weak. They were traders and farmers. How do they have such a powerful military?" "We were deceived, Your Majesty. They hid their true strength for decades while we believed their lies about being peaceful." Captain Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, now leading the human fleet above Zephyros. His orders were clear: complete destruction of all Empire government facilities. The alien civilians could live, but every trace of Empire authority had to be erased. "Captain," said his weapons officer, "we have target locks on the Imperial Palace, the High Command Center, and all military installations." "Wait for my order," Alex replied, checking his communication panel. "We're expecting a surrender offer any minute now." As predicted, the communication system activated with an incoming message from the planet's surface. Emperor Valdris appeared on the screen, his alien features twisted with desperation. "Human Commander, I am Emperor Valdris of the Galactic Empire. I wish to discuss terms of surrender." Alex looked at the alien ruler with cold eyes. "Your Majesty, there are no terms. You will surrender unconditionally, or we will turn your capital into rubble. You have 1 hour to decide. But surely we can negotiate some arrangement that benefits both of our species, the Emperor pleaded. Tell that to Danny Morrison, Alex. Sighed and cut the communication. On the other side of the galaxy, diplomat Corinne Foster was having much more productive conversations. She sat in a conference room aboard the human diplomatic ship UES Unity, meeting with representatives from 6 different alien species that had been forced to serve the Empire. The Altarian people have suffered under Empire rule for 3 centuries, said Ambassador Krell, a blue-skinned humanoid with large silver eyes. If humanity can truly defeat the Empire, we will gladly join your new federation. Karen nodded. Professionally? The Human Galactic Federation will be based on voluntary membership and mutual respect. No species will be forced to join, and member worlds will govern themselves according to their own customs. What guarantees do we have that? Humans won't become the same tyrants as the Empire? Asked Ambassador Yella of the Procyon Republic. You have our word and you have our actions, Karen replied. Look at how we treat our own colonies. Human settlements govern themselves with minimal interference from Earth. We believe in freedom, not domination. The alien ambassadors looked at each other with hope in their eyes. For the first time in centuries, they could imagine a galaxy without Empire oppression. Meanwhile, Special Forces operative Tony Garcia was leading his team through the corridors of a heavily defended Empire prison facility. Intelligence reports indicated that High Commander Vexstar, the alien who had killed Danny Morrison, was hiding in this fortress. Movement ahead, whispered Sergeant Lisa Chun, the team's scout. 2 guards at the security checkpoint. Tony signaled his team to spread out. They moved like shadows through the alien structure, their advanced armor making them nearly invisible. The Empire guards never saw them coming. Target secured, Tony reported after his team had disabled the guards without killing them. Proceeding to detention level 7. They found Vexstar in a command bunker deep underground, surrounded by his personal guard unit. The alien commander was studying tactical displays, trying to figure out how to escape the human advance. High Commander Vexstar, Tony called out as his team surrounded the bunker. You're under arrest for the murder of Danny Morrison. Vexstar spun around, his large black eyes wide with shock. Humans? How did you get past our defenses? The same. We got past all your other defenses, Tony replied coldly. We're better soldiers than you are. The alien guards raised their weapons, but Tony's team was ready. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, Vexstar was the only alien left alive. You cannot take me, Vexstar said, backing against the wall. I am a High Commander of the Galactic Empire. You are a High Commander, Tony corrected him. Now you're just a child killer who's going to face justice. Dr. Nathan Price sat in his laboratory reading reports from across Empire space. His biological weapons had been devastatingly effective. Entire Empire worlds had been rendered uninhabitable for Zephyrian life, forcing massive evacuations. The latest casualty reports, Doctor, said his assistant Dr. Rebecca Torres. Still uncomfortable with their work, Nathan scanned the numbers. 43 million Empire military personnel dead from biological agents. Another 60 million civilians who had supported the war effort. The weapons were working exactly as designed. Any word on human casualties? Nathan asked. Minimal. The biological agents only affect Empire species. Our colonists and allied aliens are completely safe, Nathan nodded with satisfaction. Good. The Empire wanted to see what happens when you threaten human children. Now they know. Intelligence operative Claire Davis had turned the Empire communication network into a weapon against itself. False orders flew across the galaxy, sending Empire ships to attack their own allies and abandon defensive positions. This is beautiful, Claire said, watching her computer screens. I just convinced the Empire Eastern Fleet that the Western Fleet has been taken over by human spies. They're moving to attack each other right now? Her supervisor, Agent Kevin Ross, shook his head in amazement. How long can you keep this up? As long as they keep believing their own communication system, Claire laughed. The Empire built their Whole military around central command and control. Take that away and they fall apart like a house of cards. Admiral Ryan Blake stood in Fleet Command on Earth, watching tactical displays that showed human forces advancing on all fronts. The Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. "Admiral," reported his aide, "we have confirmed the capture of High Commander Vexstar. Special Forces is transporting him to New Haven Colony for trial." "Excellent," Blake replied. "What's the status of the Empire capital?" "Captain Carter reports that Emperor Valdris has agreed to unconditional surrender. The Imperial Palace and all government buildings are under human control." Blake allowed himself a small smile. "Signal all fleets. Phase 2 of the operation is complete. Begin Phase 3, Occupation and Reconstruction." On the former Empire world of Rigel, human Marines worked alongside alien civilians to distribute food and medical supplies. Lieutenant Colonel Brad Murphy was surprised by how grateful the aliens seemed. "Why are they so happy to see us?" he asked his translator, a human linguist named Dr. Sarah Williams. "They're not seeing conquerors," Sarah explained. "They're seeing liberators. The Empire kept these people as slaves for centuries. To them, we're heroes." A young alien child, no older than Danny Morrison had been, ran up to the human soldiers and offered them a flower from her garden. Lieutenant Colonel Murphy knelt down and accepted the gift with a gentle smile. "Tell her thank you," he said to the translator. "Tell her that human children and alien children should all be safe to play in their gardens." Back on New Haven Colony, Jake and Lisa Morrison stood in the same room where their son had been murdered, but now it looked very different. High Commander Vexstar sat in chains before a human tribunal, his arrogant demeanor replaced by fear and desperation. "High Commander Vexstar," said Judge William Clark, "you stand accused of the murder of 10-year-old Danny Morrison, an innocent human child. How do you plead?" Vexstar looked around the room at the faces of the colonists he had terrorized. These humans no longer looked afraid. They looked like judges preparing to deliver justice. "I was following Empire orders," Vexstar said weakly. "I was enforcing Imperial law." "There is no more Empire," Judge Clark replied. "There is no more Imperial law. There is only justice for the child you killed." The trial would last 3 days. But everyone already knew the outcome. Vexstar would face the same mercy he had shown to Danny Morrison. None at all. The Galactic Empire was dead, destroyed by the fury of a species that would not tolerate threats to their children. In its place, something new was being born, a federation based on freedom rather than fear, justice rather than oppression. Danny Morrison's death had changed the galaxy forever. The morning sun shone over New Haven Colony just as it had 6 months ago when Danny Morrison played in the park with his sister Katie, but everything else had changed. Where once there had been only human colonists, now representatives from dozens of alien species walked the streets peacefully. High Commander Vexstar stood in chains at the exact spot where he had murdered the human child. A simple wooden platform had been built for the execution, and thousands of beings from across the galaxy had come to witness justice being served. Jake Morrison held his wife Lisa's hand as they watched the alien who had destroyed their family face his final moments. Katie stood between her parents, now 7 years old and still asking when Danny was coming home. "Today Danny gets justice," Jake whispered to his daughter. "The bad alien who hurt him will never hurt anyone else." Judge William Clark read the verdict to the gathered crowd. "High Commander Vexstar, you have been found guilty of the murder of Danny Morrison, an innocent child. You killed him to send a message about power and fear. Today we send our own message about justice and consequences." Vexstar looked around at the faces surrounding him. Humans, yes, but also aliens from dozens of species that had once served the Empire. All of them watched him with the same expression, satisfaction that a murderer was finally facing punishment. "Any last words?" Judge Clark asked. Vexstar straightened his back, trying to find some of his old arrogance. "The Empire will return. You cannot keep the galaxy under human control forever." "We don't want to control the galaxy," Jake Morrison Saad, stepping forward, "We just want our children to be safe. All children, human and alien alike." The execution was quick and clean. Vextar fell to the same ground where Danny Morrison had died, and with him died the last symbol of Empire tyranny, President. Helen Cross stood before the newly formed Galactic Council on Earth. Representatives from 47 different species sat in the Great Assembly Hall, each one a former victim of Empire oppression. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Helen began, "6 months ago, the Galactic Empire murdered one of our children. They thought it would make humanity weak and afraid. Instead, it showed the galaxy what humans are truly capable of when we fight for what we believe in." She gestured to the alien representatives. "Today we establish the Human Galactic Federation, but this is not about human dominance. This is about freedom, justice, and the protection of all innocent life. Every species that joins us does so voluntarily, and every member world governs itself according to its own traditions." Ambassador Krell of the Altarians stood up. "President Cross, my people have lived under tyranny for 3 centuries. We have seen what Empire rule looks like, but we have also seen how humans treat their allies. We request full membership in your federation." One by one, the alien representatives requested membership. They had watched humans fight not for conquest, but for justice. They had seen human soldiers risk their lives to protect alien civilians. They had witnessed a species that could wage total war but chose to build peace instead. Admiral Ryan Blake reviewed the final military reports in his office. At Fleet Command, the war was officially over, but the work of securing the galaxy had just begun. "What's our current fleet deployment?" he asked his aide. "Patrol squadrons in 43 star systems, sir. Defense stations at all major trade routes. The former Empire worlds are secure, and piracy has dropped to almost 0. Blake nodded with satisfaction. "And our casualty reports. Final count, 812 human military personnel killed in action. The alien casualties... The aide paused, checking his numbers. Empire military dead, 4.7 million. Empire civilian casualties, approximately 68 million. Blake was quiet for a moment, thinking about those numbers. The Empire had killed 1 human child, and humanity had responded by destroying their entire civilization. It seemed like overkill, but Blake remembered the cold look in Vextar's eyes when he pulled the trigger. "Sir, was it worth it?" the aide asked quietly. "Ask me that question in 50 years, Blake replied. "If human children can play safely in parks across the galaxy without fear of alien soldiers, then yes, it was worth every life we took." Captain Alex Carter walked through the corridors of his ship, the UES Vengeance, as his crew prepared for their next assignment. They were being sent to the far edge of the galaxy to establish a new human base in former Empire territory. "Captain," said his executive officer, "we're getting reports of some Empire holdouts in the Omega sector. Small groups that refuse to accept the surrender." "How small?" Alex asked. "Maybe a dozen ships total, pirates and terrorists, mostly." "Nothing that poses a real threat," Alex smiled grimly. "Send them a message. Tell them what happened to the last aliens who threatened human children. If they're smart, they'll surrender. If they're not smart, we'll help them understand their mistake." Dr. Nathan Price sat in his laboratory, but he wasn't working on weapons anymore. Instead, he was developing medical treatments for the alien species that had been affected by his biological warfare. The war was over, and now it was time to heal. "The Zephyrian respiratory treatment is showing good results," he told Dr. Rebecca Torres. "We should be able to reverse most of the damage from the airborne compounds." Rebecca looked surprised. "Nathan, I thought you wanted revenge against all Empire species." "I wanted justice for Danny Morrison," Nathan corrected her. "Justice for the child they killed. But that doesn't mean I want to hurt innocent aliens who had nothing to do with his death. We're humans, Rebecca. We fight to protect the innocent, not to become monsters ourselves." Intelligence operative Claire Davis was enjoying her new job much more than her old one. Instead of breaking into alien computer systems to cause chaos, She was now helping former Empire worlds establish their own communication networks free from government control. The Rigelian system is online, she reported to her supervisor. They now have full access to the Galactic Information Network without any censorship or monitoring. How are they handling their new freedom? Agent Kevin Ross asked. Like children in a candy store, Claire laughed. They're downloading everything they can find about art, music, literature, and science. The Empire kept them isolated for so long that they're hungry for knowledge about the rest of the galaxy. On the former Empire world of Altair, human engineers worked alongside alien workers to rebuild cities that had been damaged in the war. Lieutenant Colonel Brad Murphy supervised the construction of a new school where human and alien children would learn together. "Colonel," said his engineering chief, "the alien parents want to know if their children will be safe in the same schools as human children." Brad looked over at a group of alien youngsters playing with human kids in the construction area. They were laughing and running around together, completely ignoring the differences in their species. "Tell the parents that human children and alien children are all just children," Brad said. "We fought this war to protect them, not to separate them." Back on New Haven Colony, the Morrison family stood at Danny's memorial as the sun set over the park. The simple stone marker now bore an inscription that had been translated into dozens of alien languages. Danny Morrison, his death united the galaxy in peace. "Do you think he would be proud of what we did?" Lisa asked her husband. Jake thought about the question carefully. "I think he would be proud that children across the galaxy can now play safely in their parks. But I think he would be sad about all the fighting it took to make that happen." Katie looked up at her parents with serious eyes. "Daddy, will the bad aliens ever come back?" "No, sweetheart," Jake said, kneeling down to hug his daughter. "The bad aliens are gone forever. And if any new bad aliens ever show up, they'll learn very quickly what happens when you threaten human families." President Helen Cross stood on the balcony of her office, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the trade routes, keeping the galaxy safe. Former Empire worlds were building new governments based on freedom instead of fear. Children of dozens of species were growing up together in peace. The cost had been enormous. Millions of lives lost, entire civilizations destroyed, the balance of galactic power completely overturned. All because one alien soldier decided to murder a human child to make a point about obedience. But the result was a galaxy where no child, human or alien, would ever again face the threat of imperial tyranny. The Empire had ruled through fear for 1,000 years. Now the Human Galactic Federation would protect the innocent for the next 1,000 years. Danny Morrison had been just one small boy playing in a park on a distant colony world. His death had changed everything. The galaxy was safer now, but it had learned a terrible lesson about the price of threatening those that humans loved. Helen smiled as she watched the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, children were sleeping safely in their beds, protected by the fury of a species that would move heaven and earth to keep them safe. The war was over. The peace had begun, and the galaxy would never forget the name of Danny Morrison, the child whose death saved every other child in the stars.